Hey, welcome everybody. It is Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. And look, Mark and I are hanging out together. We're actually going to do the show live together. We are in Austin, Texas. It is 7 a.m. here. And you know what time of the week it is? It is time for Sales Logic. So Mark, you had a good week?
I had a great week. I know you had a great week. You literally are doing this on about 2 hours of sleep. That's outstanding. And more importantly, she is drinking Starbucks coffee, the expensive coffee,
That's
not
right.
the cheap McDonald's
but
stuff.
Mark bought it.
But I did buy it. Hey, let's get into the show. The topic, how to increase your win-loss ratio. We got a great book in the lightning round. Lightning round is going to be top 10 ways to prepare for a sales call. So let's jump right into it. How to increase your win-loss ratio. What's your take on it?
Well, Mark, one of the reasons this is the topic this week is because the win-loss ratio is drastically on the decline. It has been, it's been a tough year for sales professionals. A lot of times we get in the ring, but we just cannot get it across the finish line. So I think there's a lot of reasons why, and I think probably one of the biggest reasons why is that we're not selling before the sale. I read a statistic that said 95% of people who make it to the inner circle, who make it to, getting the deal to close, they were already halfway through the sale before they ever interacted with the prospect, meaning that the prospect found information about them online, they found information about them from other sources, they were educated about the person calling on them.
Well, this brings up a couple different issues. It brings up this whole issue of sales and marketing being much more closely aligned. When we say marketing, it's that media presence, it's the social media awareness, it's all of those things that you're doing that's so critical. And two, it also brings up, we talked about this in a show back here a few months ago, how the need to have, instead of a 3X pipeline, a 5X pipeline, a bigger pipeline than ever. And you're right. So to a certain degree, the win-loss ratio is going to go down a little bit, but it goes back to what you said, the preparation. What are we doing to really prepare the customer before we engage with them? I think that's where the gap is. That's not to run away from prospecting. No, that you got to be doing that in addition to, because it's noisy out there.
Yeah, it's really noisy out there. And I think far too often as sales reps, we're waiting on marketing to do that piece. And we think about it as marketing's job. But marketing is creating all these incredible materials for you. I think a couple of things there. I think number one, what are you doing to supply marketing with the challenges and problems that you hear as a sales professional? If you want to increase your win-loss ratio, you need to be really strong intel for the marketing department. You need to be telling them, I need an article about this. We need to shoot a video about this. And then what are you doing as an individual producer to get that information out into the market?
That brings up a great strategy. Go ask your best customers, what are the 10 issues that they are dealing with? And then you create an article, you create a video, you create messaging that marketing can then begin to use to get out there. Because what you're doing is you're preparing the marketplace. It's really a lot like why we do this podcast.
Exactly.
Right? We've been doing this podcast for years because it prepares the market, and in turn it generates leads and opportunities for us to come in and do speaking, consulting, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a twofold market. But now, this does not mean you give up on prospecting, because I think you would very much agree with this. This doesn't mean, you sit back and wait for the phone to ring. No. You've got to get the phone ringing. Our good friend Bryn is already jumping in. I love it.
Yeah, she says socially surround the entire buying committee and bring each stakeholder value early on in the process, which I think Bryn is bringing up such a great point. Not only to socially surround, I haven't heard that phrase. That's a great phrase. But I want to zero in on what she's saying, the entire buying committee. I think if you want to increase the win-loss ratio, you've got to realize there are multiple buyers making the decision. If I had a dime for how many times somebody calls me, I have a conversation with them, and they let me know it's somebody else's decision that I'm not engaging with, that I'm not talking to, that I cannot get in front of. And I am at the mercy of the person who's representing me. And I think you need to take that into account. So what Bryn is saying, how can you make those connections online with them? I'm also going to argue, what are you doing to supply your rep with information they can use to sell you to the rest of the committee?
And that brings up a whole litany of opportunities, because the availability of information has never been greater. in terms of being able to find out who else works at a company, who else is there, et cetera. But go back to a couple questions, and I've raised these before. 2 questions that you need to ask. How have you made a decision-making, decision like this in the past? Ask them, what's been the process you go through? And then you ask them the question, who else needs to be involved? Who else is typically involved? And you've got to be able to ask those questions. Now, here's the challenge. You're not going to get honest answers until you've developed a relationship with them. So it does. It means you've got to create a relationship, but you've got to find out, because there are other people involved in the process. Because you're right. I mean, the win-loss ratio. A lot of people say they are, oh, I'm the decision maker. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that we also need to diagnose what the real problem is. I think far too often the win-loss ratio is we're selling what the customer told or the prospect said, I want to buy. And that's not what's going on there. You got to get, like, I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I had a speaking engagement, a customer client event. Before I went on stage, I had a prospect call. Somebody called me because they needed a sales speaker. Do you know what? They're looking at 9 other sales speakers in me. They're not looking for a sales speaker. They have a particular problem that they need solved, that my proposal needs to address. And he made it very clear to me that he has a lot of weight in the decision, but he is not the decision maker. So 2 things going on there. I need to give him the tools to sell to the rest of the committee. The other is I need to frame my proposal based on the problem they're looking to solve as a sales team.
And in order to get to that, you got to be able to ask enough questions to figure out what is their real problem. Because I firmly believe this. Once you find out the real problem, and it's not necessarily what they tell you up front.
It isn't. 99% is not.
Oh, we need a speaker for a sales meeting. No. What's the problem they need to solve? We need to get upstream to figure out what the problem is that the customer has. And this is the challenge. I think salespeople become desperate. Oh, my closing ratio is dropping, so I need to try to close faster. That makes the problem worse. Because what you're doing is you're leading with your solution. You're not understanding what the problem is.
Yeah. Mark, do we have a question?
We do have a question. Question comes to us today from Franco in Paris. He says, my win rate used to be around 30%, and now it's closer to 18%. Same effort, same pipeline. The size is, what's the problem? Is it a market problem, or am I just measuring it wrong? A lot of things we could dissect on that one. First of all, going from 30 to 18, man, we got a serious issue here. Wow.
Well, I think, first of all, let's talk about all the excuses we can have as salespeople. I mean, it's a more competitive marketplace. There's so much global uncertainty. You've got a lot of headwinds coming at you right now. So, you know what? I don't know about you, Mark, but my win-loss ratio moves quarter to quarter. First quarter of this year, I had such a high win-loss ratio. I mean, I was closing deals like there was no tomorrow. I was just talking with one of our speaker friends about this. Second quarter was good. Third quarter has been rough. My win-loss ratio has really dropped. So what I love about what you're doing, Franco, is analyzing it. And the very first thing that I would do if I were you was I would do a seeds, a weeds, and a needs on my win-loss ratio. What am I doing right now that's closing deals? Because first of all, if your win-loss ratio, I love that you said same effort, same pipeline. So you have not done anything different. What does that tell us? It tells us the marketplace shifted on you. Yesterday, I was talking to a group of convenience store owners, and you want to talk about external factors, their pipeline. When I asked them about uncertainty in the marketplace, it came down to one word, and the word was fuel. So right now, they're all struggling. Tomorrow, we could, the strait could open. Oil could be flowing like crazy. Supply chain could be back up. And you know what? Their win-loss ratio will go up. So the first thing you need to do is analyze why the win-loss ratio shifted.
Now, that brings up a good point, because those factors are outside of those
Yes.
convenience store. Okay, so they can't control the price of fuel and disposable income. You're right, it's less. And it's the same thing in the first quarter. You and I both have a high close ratio because people are doing sales kickoff meetings. So that's good. And then you get later in the year. So some of these factors are seasonal, economic, outside of. Now, does that change who we are? No, because we can't control them. We can't control them. What it means, though, is that we have to do a better job of educating the marketplace understanding who our ideal customer is, staying in that lane, and really working to understand. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Ask your best customers their 10 problems, develop content to address each of those, to begin letting the marketplace in your space know that you can help them with those problems.
Yeah, I mean, if your win-loss ratio dropped in the marketplace, I wonder if your customers' win-loss ratio dropped in the marketplace. They may be feeling the same impact of the headwinds that you're going through. So usually when the win-loss ratio drops, you're solving the wrong problem. Now think about that. I tell salespeople this all the time. If you start the year with one sales process and you finish the year with the same sales process, your sales process is out of date. And the reason it's out of date is because we are living in a marketplace that is moving rapidly, right? Like I think about what I closed in January, and by March, I was working a deal that I had closed in January. And by March, my client's world had drastically changed. They're a global company and the war had broken out. It had impacted absolutely everything. I didn't even deliver what I sold them because the marketplace shifted.
So there's two things that you really got to understand. What's happening in the marketplace. You really have to understand what are the factors that your customers are dealing with. So that means you got to look at their customers. Go downstream. Two, it really comes down to you changing your questions, because are you asking the right questions to really understand what is the problem that the customer has? I firmly believe there is more opportunity for us in sales to help customers than we have seen in years, because there's a lot of problems out there. We're not taking the time to listen and just ask enough questions. And that means you've got to be able to have enough face time with them, which means, and again, this runs counter, but maybe you're trying to prospect too many people and it's not giving you enough time to spend enough time with the right people.
Yeah, I love what Bryn is saying here. She said you can also research the names of the people you believe will be involved, and rather than ask them who should be involved, tell them. Typically, the next step should include Sally, Fred, and Ann. By any chance, do you have access to their calendars? Bold move, Bryn. Just love it.
And don't hesitate just to go ahead and reach out to them. Remember, if you have the ability to help someone, you have a responsibility to connect with them. You are doing them a disservice if you don't. So this is why you create these value-added messages, because then you are seen as a person who can help. And that is absolutely key. We have to drive the process, because again, if you believe that you can help someone, you owe it to them. And if we sit back, and this is where I think so many salespeople fall down, they wait for the leads to come in. They wait for the opportunity. They wait too long. We have to engage. Got to be proactive. Franco in Paris, I'm gonna challenge you. If your close ratio has gone from 13 to 18, you say you haven't. I want to go back and look at your pipeline individually and just look at how many touches you've had, because I have a feeling some of those are falling off.
Yeah, the thing I want every listener to understand about the win-loss ratio is not to treat it like a scoreboard, but to treat it like data. It's intel, it's information. It's part of the story. It's not the end of the story. I mean, typically the way that I think the win-loss ratio is such a problem is because we go into a sales meeting with our sales leader and we kind of get a smack because we didn't hit our quota that month. And so what we do is we go back and we sweat and we work harder and we get the win-loss ratio up to where it needs to be for the next month. And then we fall off again because we never took the time to breathe and to listen and to figure out why the win-loss ratio was off. And you need to know that. It is so important to analyze why you win deals, why you lose deals, keep what's working, and try different things.
I love Osama's comment. He says, in many cases, you need to know the end user and not only the decision maker. You're right. This is going downstream. This is so critical. And this is where so many salespeople fall off. We are not willing to have enough conversations with enough people to really create the real need. Because I firmly believe when we do that, because I think also right now, customers are looking for reasons not to buy.
I would agree.
I mean, because again, well, the marketplace could change more in there. So if you don't get to the urgent need that they have right now, you can just absolutely blow it off. And that means what you have to do is you have to figure out a way. How do I take this pain that they have? How do I correlate it to time? In other words, the time and the urgency, which means connecting it to something else. In other words, if you don't do this now with me, you will not be able to do X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z may be significantly bigger. That's how you close the big deals.
Yeah, Mark, I lost one yesterday. I got an email when I got on the plane last night. They said that they decided not to go with the speaker this year. They'll talk to me next year. And here was my thought. My thought was, first, bummer on a Friday afternoon. It's kind of like getting fired. B, but I thought I didn't provide enough value. I didn't create an urgency that they didn't feel like they had to have a speaker. That was completely on me. Now that's a drag, but the point was, it tells me my proposal was not robust enough. I didn't dive enough into what the real problem was and what their ROI could be delivered. So I've got 2 more proposals to deliver this morning. You better believe I'm going back through those.
Yeah, because if you deliver the proposals, I'm going to come in to speak.
Yeah.
Wrong. It's the solution you're going to provide. And this comes back to something else. Okay, you got rejected on a Friday afternoon. You and I have joked that Fridays is closing day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we close more deals on Fridays. I love it. But I'll tell you what, your mindset plays games with you, because you could easily allow that. Oh man, and well, it's just not working. It's just not working. And Franco, this is what you have to be concerned with. Going from 30 to 18, you say, well, you know what? It's just going to shut down. I'm not going to worry about it for 3 or 4 months. I'm just going to focus on my existing customers, whatever. Your mindset drives so much right now in this marketplace, because there's so many factors we can't control, but you can control your mindset. Stay in the game. No, and this is where it comes back to. Take a piece of paper, write down all of the benefits, all of the great things you've done for your customers, and give yourself a hug. Compliment yourself, because again, that's absolutely spot on. You got to use that to motivate yourself, because I'm seeing a lot of salespeople becoming rejected. Because they become rejected, they become dejected. And that's not a good situation.
Yeah, I love what Bryn is saying here. The number one reason sales reps are not performing as they used to is because they are doing what they've always done. Cannot emphasize that enough. That's why I always say seeds, weeds, and needs. This is about understanding what moves the needle and understanding what doesn't move the needle. And it's more critical than ever, because most of the things that are impacting your win-loss ratio are outside of your control.
And isn't it, I mean, we're seeing that in this industry. We're at the National Speakers Association, and a lot of speakers are
struggling
because they're using the same methods. And I'll tell you what, this is why I think you and I love doing this podcast, because we get to share new ideas. And this is why we have such a great audience, because again, it's you got to constantly be asking yourself, what do I need to change? What do I need to tweak? You're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
No. These are just little slight modifications.
Yeah, absolutely. Osama's chiming in and saying, great job there, Bryn. Mark, one thing though that we haven't brought up that is so important if you want to increase the win-loss ratio is qualifying, and really, really qualifying well and qualifying early, because you will never increase your win-loss ratio ever if you focus on somebody who isn't going to buy. Going back again to the fact that Mark said we started the day off with Starbucks coffee. Remember, when it comes to coffee, I'm the cheap one. Marketing a really good cup of coffee to me is not worth it. It's totally worth it to Mark. Now, you try to sell Mark a country club membership to a big fancy golf course, not interested. I think it's completely worth it. You got to know your buyer and what's important to your buyer, what they value. I can't tell you how many times vendors that I work with, that I give money to, send me alcohol. I don't drink. I don't want it at my house. I don't want it around. It just reinforces they do not know me. So they're spending money and wasting it on something I do not value. So you gotta sell. I call it selling from a place of power rather than a place of need. Those first couple of calls, really, ideally, if you can do it on the first, is you got to know your 9 qualifiers. And if people don't meet 6 of the 9, get out of there.
And we did an episode on that probably about a year or 2 ago. We should put a link. We should put a link to it, because again, you've got to qualify prospect. And this is the problem. What happens is salespeople start to get desperate. I'm not closing that field. So they think they need more prospects. And all you're doing is creating warm bodies. Let me tell you something. A warm body is not going to buy. And you gotta screen them. And they have to earn the right to become a qualified prospect. Just because you have a lead does not make them a prospect. Please, we have to separate them. You said 9. You're right. We both have criteria that you have to go through. And we may not learn that on the first email, fine, but I'm going to learn that maybe a phone call, maybe something like that. But I'm going to qualify you very quickly. And then I'm going to spend time with you, because my whole objective, and I know you embrace the same thing, you're going to spend more time with the prospects who you have the highest potential to service. That's where you're going to focus your time. And that's what it's all about. It's not just chasing stuff. That creates a bigger problem. Sales managers, you are guilty of this. You are guilty because you're asking your people to have so much more in their pipeline. And let me tell you something. I can stuff a pipeline pretty well. And what I come up with is a sewer pipe. And my plunger is not going to fix it, period.
Oh God, I went back because I've done nothing really but sit in airports for the last few days. I went back through my pipeline, and I gotta say, Mark, I'm guilty of this. I had some junk in that pipeline, and it was painful because when I took it out, my pipeline's not where I want it to be, and I'm like, ugh. But you know what, Franco, it's so important to deal in reality. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. I feel like if you take nothing from this podcast, take from this podcast that if you want to increase your win-loss ratio, treat it as intel, not a scorecard. It is giving you information. And knowing that what you're doing isn't working is great information. It gives you what you need so that you can make it start working.
Oh, and I'm going to add one final comment, then we'll jump to the book and the lightning round.
We're a little passionate about this.
We are passionate about this. And that's good, because here's the whole thing. If you have opportunities in your pipeline, maybe you have 5 stages, 6 stages in your pipeline, whatever, and they are sitting in the same stage for any length of time, and you have to determine what that length of time is, but they've been there in that same stage for 2-3 months. Get them out of there. They're not going anywhere. Move it to marketing. Move it to your email list. But it's not something that you are going to be selling to, period. Again, your pipeline is to be a water tap. You are to be able to put things in and move them through quickly.
Mark, I think that is such a good subject. And I think that might be something we talk about in the next couple of weeks, is getting prospects in the right stage in the pipeline and what each stage means. Because there's so much I could come about there, but we are burning time.
We are burning time. Hey, the book this week, Chasing Cheetahs by Nancy Narden and Robert Narden. I have not had a chance to read it. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a great book about prospecting, and about, as salespeople, we need to go after the right prospect. And what it means is, far too often we spend time chasing the wrong prospect. If you want to increase it was such a perfect fit for today, because if you want to increase your win-loss ratio, one of the most important things you've got to do is protect your time. You've got to protect your time. You only have so much time. And the moment that you decide to chase a prospect, you just said no to other prospects. You better choose wisely.
Yeah. We're having a good time. We're actually live in person, so maybe we're having a great conversation. I don't know. But anyway, hey, lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
Top 10 ways to prepare for a sales call. Go.
Number 1, do your research.
Oh, I had on my list, do your homework, but that's spot on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say research the person as well as the company. Know something about the individual.
And when you know the person, know the people. I'm going to say know the people. Again, go back to one of Bryn's comments earlier. You got to know all the people in the organization.
Yeah, I would say, I wish Terry and Gina, we're going to see them in a little bit, but Terry would also weigh in on using your AI tools. Like, really get in there and ask AI, look, I need some really good discovery questions, or tell me something that might not surface in some of my other research. Go deep with me and help me understand really what's going on with this prospect.
And that means that you know the customer. You know the industry. You know the industry that they play in. Who are their competitors? Who are their challenges? What are the big issues that they're dealing with?
Yeah, know your competition. Understand who else they might be talking to. What are the advantages your competition has over you?
Know your customers' customers. Go downstream. I talk about this a lot. The more you know your customers' customers, the better you'll be able to help your customer.
Yeah, be ready with stories and case studies, like some really good proof that that you understand their industry, you've solved their problems, and you can show them that you've worked with people like them.
With every conversation, whether it be Teams, Zoom, in person, email, whatever, be clear with your objectives. What is it? What is the outcome that you're looking for from this message?
Yeah, probably one of the most important things is write down every question that you want to ask and go into AI and your research and figure out which ones you can do in your homework and which ones need to be asked in person, so that you can go into the sales call going, I did my homework. Here's what I learned. Here's what I understand. Then focus on those questions that really you can only get from the individual.
I'll share one more and we'll close down. I'm going to say, take that whole question thing. When you ask them questions, whatever they share with you, ask them another question on it. Engage them. It's not about the presentation. It's about the questions you ask. Hey, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical. And Mare has been drinking a Starbucks coffee.
And she's going to drink another one after that, but she's going to fill it up with the cheap stuff back there because, got to sell to the right prospect. Listen, Mark and I have a big meeting on Monday where we are going to put the final details on what we're doing with the podcast, what we're doing with our Sales Logic community. You want to tune back in. Tom, the book is Chasing Cheetahs. It'll be here in the link. Now, everybody go close a deal. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic. You do it. Great finger.